what was impressive to me is that they were sold out a couple of weeks in advance for 1,008 people for dinner and a talk. It wasn't negative. They were sold out weeks in advance. And no negative questions, a very enthusiastic audience. Now, this wasn't little old ladies in tennis shoes. Detroit was a big engineering city then, a little smaller now. Other people are producing cars, but anyway. And so I gave a number of professional group lectures, sections of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. And I asked the company, I said, I need a statement of the rules here. I don't want to lose my job. I mean, I've got a clearance. I need it for work. I got a wife, a couple of kids, and I've got a mortgage. You know, what are the rules of the game here? I want to do more talking. And management came back to me in a week or so and said, Stan, look, three basic things. One, you can say what you please on your time. Two, you can identify yourself as a Westinghouse nuclear physicist. And three, we want you to start with a disclaimer that the views you're about to hear are yours and not the company's. Who could be nicer than that? So I did a number of talks, and then I got a call from a colleague out at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He was working on nuclear rockets. I was working on nuclear rockets, radiation shielding, both of us. And he'd heard somewhere that I was giving lectures on flying saucers. And he said, Stan, how about speaking to the local section of the American Nuclear Society? Well, I'm a member of the ANS. I said, sure, of course. He says, no, I mean on an expense account. And I said, hey, Glenn, I don't make those decisions, but I'll ask management and see what they say. Would you believe they said, sure. Now, they're a corporate member of the American Nuclear Society, so maybe it's not too surprising. And anyway, they paid my way out. I spoke to 500 people there. Again, no negative questions. So what I found was there was enormous interest amongst the professional groups and a very enthusiastic response. I found I enjoyed being on the stage, and my fees were going up too. And then when the bottom fell out less than a year later, I guess, of the advanced nuclear and space systems business, all these programs were being canceled. No leadership to say we want to build one of these things. I mean, yeah, we operated jet engines on nuclear power, and yes, we tested nuclear rocket engines on the ground, fission rockets, and I worked on fusion propulsion systems, studies of them at Aerojet General Nucleonics, but when it came time to fish or cut bait, everybody was cutting bait. So I finally went full-time, and I've been on my own ever since. I like my boss. You know, so it's the enthusiastic response of professionals that, remember, I was pretty young back then, and I couldn't reject their approval, in other words. I had to respect that. And let's face it, I've only had 11 hecklers and over 700 lectures, and 2 of them were drunk. So, you know, you get that many if you talk about sports, religion, politics, whatever. So people think I must get a hard time. I don't get a hard time. And, you know, I enjoy myself on the stage. Also, you know, I bring to the table, I guess, 4 special things. One, I've worked on advanced propulsion systems, so I can deal with the stupid arguments that you can't get here from there. Secondly, I've worked under security for 14 years, and since then I've been to 20 archives. So I know how security works, and the notion that you can't cover things up is nonsense. So I can deal with that. Third, I enjoy being on the stage, and people seem to like that. And I've answered, I figured 45,000 questions. And people have no trouble with the technical data I present. They've never heard of it. Fewer than 2% have read any of the 5 large-scale scientific studies I discussed. But what they really want is answers to the why questions. you know, why the cover-up? Why would aliens come here? Why don't they land on the White House lawn? This sort of stuff. And because I've had to think about these much more than most people out of these since I'm under the gun, they seem to like my answers. So, you know, I've written two books, and the third, and a new one coming out in a few months. I'm going to be responding very well.
Okay, so there you go. Yes. Now, when you started doing this, started doing the speaking and so forth, you were more or less talking about events that had actually already been written about. However, later on,
no, not really. I was doing a lot of my own research too. Things that I heard about. I was the first to do a number of things. And I was the first to publish about the star map work that goes with the Betty and Barney Hill case. I was the first to have soil analyzed from a physical trace case, the Delphos case in Kansas. You know, so I wasn't just recycling. I don't talk about stuff. Well, pretty much the cases that I talk about are cases that I've investigated, that I've met the people, that I've looked at, except for photographs. And there I rely on the Judge Gillespie, who's a physical physicist and a very fine ufologist and has fancy equipment. And so I use his testimony on those. I'm just a nuclear guy, which has nothing to do with pictures, of course. So, but, you know, my time in the libraries is spent not to get material to use as stories of flying saucers, but primarily research related to government documents, because and one of the books is about this top secret magic, MAJIC, about the Majestic 12 documents. And so, unfortunately, I find that there's a great many armchair theorists out there who think that they can tell the truth sitting in their armchair about government documents. Well, not only did I work on classified programs and handle classified documents, but in going to archives, you actually spend the time to go through the stuff. You don't, none of it's been scanned. You have to go there to look at it. And so you develop a much better appreciation. The date format is wrong. 18 November, comma, 1952 for one of the key documents. That violates the government style manual. It does, but that's totally irrelevant because there are all kinds of date formats. And if you go to the archives, you see them. I made $1,000 because one of the noisiest negativists, Philip Glass, the late Philip Glass, claimed that the typeface was wrong on one of the Majestic 12 documents. It is, maybe you didn't notice, it was a large pica type, but I got 9 documents from the National Security Council from back in the early 50s from the Eisenhower Library, and they were all done in elite type. But this document is pica type. It must be phony. I offer you $100 each for every genuine document that's done in the same size and style type. Now, I'd already noticed that there were 3 different typewriters in use at the Eisenhower Library at that time for National Security Council material. It turns out there's a total of about 250,000 pages of National Security Council material. Mr. Glass had never been there. He got his 9 documents by mail. To make a long story short, I sent him 14, which met all of his criteria, and sent him an invoice for his limit on 10. And he paid me. He didn't tell anybody about paying me. He told a lot of people about challenging me. But, I mean, that's what I mean by armchair. What kind of sense does it make to go from 9 documents to 250,000 and presume they're all done with the same typewriter? Rational. But then are the objections to the MJ-12 document.